I think it's more important to be active up front with your investing to understand what's happening and what kind of cash flow and what works and what doesn't work, rather than going, I mean, how many people just hand money over to advisors in today's day and age? Here, just take care of it for me. But what are they even doing? And then they just hand it over to other advisors that are taking care of it. They've never walked the deals. They've never analyzed the advisor. They're the money managers. And so we're just in this world where we get further and further away from the transaction. And the further away from the transaction we are, the more risk there is. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. 401ks, loans, and debt. What do? Cash it out, pay it off, keep it going, keep funding it? I mean, what if you're making a change? What have you been following gurus that are all about scrimping, saving, sacrificing, budgeting, and delaying your entire life so that one day, someday, you can stop living off beans and rice, and now life will be good? Well, if you've got your credit cards frozen in your freezer and you think there might be a better way, you're in the right place.
Today's session's inspired by Kyle's question.
Yeah, let's hear about Kyle's question.
Okay. Kyle says, hello, I'm starting a new job next month and trying to decide what to do with my 401k.
Okay.
We have about $18,000 in student loans that we planned on paying off this year and
Nice.
about a $95,000 mortgage.
Okay.
I've recently learned more about what a 401k really is and realized I want to utilize other investment vehicles with my money. I've just started emerging from a Dave Ramsey mindset, and I'm still very timid and ignorant of the next step forward. But I'd love to invest in real estate in the future. I have about $58,000 in my 401k. I'm 31 and I opened a Roth IRA last year that only has $1,700 in it. Any advice on whether to roll the 401k over or cash it out and pay off debt or hold cash? Any advice on this would be appreciated.
All right, plenty of options that we could discuss here. And we'll talk about kind of the philosophical construct here.
Okay.
A, you can roll over when you stop working somewhere to a self-directed IRA. Those self-directed IRAs could be used for real estate, but I would give a few words of caution.
Okay.
When you buy real estate that you can depreciate for tax purposes, like rental real estate, that you get tax advantages, once that is inside of an IRA, which is what you'd roll a 401k over to, you don't get that depreciation. You don't get that tax advantage. Plus, real estate is a capital gain asset, which in the time we're recording this, long-term capital gains are 0, 15, or 20%, where ordinary income can be as high as 37.5%. So you no longer can treat it as capital gains once it's in a retirement plan either. So even though you could acquire it, you may not want to. Now, Roth IRA is a little bit different because, you know, there are people that use that money in a Roth IRA in a self-directed. They put money down on escrow. They get a property. They fix it up. They flip it. They have all these gains, but they don't have to pay tax on that gain unless they pull the gain out before 59.5 or the government changes the rules, which could happen. So when it comes to loans, like right now, look at what your 401k is doing. How well is it performing? How long do you think it'll perform like that? How do you feel about that performance and whether it can continue, or if you understand why that would happen or not? And then consider, how much does that debt keep you up at night or frustrate you, or you feel like you're paying more in interest than what you're earning with your investments? And so, yes, you could cash out the retirement plan, and there may be provisions to get $100,000 without the 10% penalty if you've been impacted by COVID, depending on, you got to check on that, talk to an investment advisor or a tax advisor about it. But that would mean you don't have that 10% penalty, but you would have to pay tax if you're to cash it out. And if you're going to pay off loans, you would pretty much have to cash it out in order to pay off those loans. So for me, I cashed out my 401k when I was in my early 20s.
Let me guess what you did.
What did I do with it, Stelba? Go ahead and say it.
You put it in your front lawn, so it would always
I
be
bought
growing.
a house and there was no lawn, so I put it front and backyard with a sprinkling system. And then guess what happened? My lawn would grow, and I'd have to cut it. And when people were complaining that their 401k wasn't growing in 2008, I'm like, I can't get mine to stop. Yes, that is a terrible joke, and I said it again, and you've heard it many times because
and
you know me.
And I still laugh somehow.
Yeah, somehow. You encourage it, so I blame you. So yeah, you know, it's cost of money, which we talk about a lot. Mm-hmm. What can you earn versus what can you pay?
Yeah.
Right? If you're paying more in interest than what you're earning, why not pay it off? if you are getting a really low interest rate and you're cash flowing and you're really comfortable with where you're investing your money. But a lot of people jump to speculation, right? So right now, crypto is doing really well, but that's highly speculative.
Yeah.
So if you're like, well, no, I'll just not pay this off and I'll put it there. Or if you're getting involved in real estate before you understand it. So my recommendation is invest in a real estate education. Invest in what is it you're going to learn about when it comes to real estate, so you don't get over leveraged or take too much risk or get in a place where you're buying things and they work temporarily but not long term. What you want to learn about how to do due diligence, how to figure out which deals to do and which ones not to do, what numbers you're looking for, what your exit strategies are, what types of options can you have if the economy changes. Those are the things to invest in, is back into your skill set and into yourself before you jump into those investments. But if paying a loan off just makes you feel, so much better, and you get that peace of mind and now you can really focus, great. But it really comes down to the individual.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And one thing that I think you've said in another video, but we'll reiterate here, is it's so essential for a person to go in and have the knowledge about the investment before they get into it, because especially in real estate, they're working with large systems of people who are using programs to assess what are good deals, right? And so if you're an individual entering the space with a little bit of knowledge, it could be easy to be taken advantage of. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but just kind of get into the mix of people who are living and breathing it all the time.
Right. It's doing something as a hobby or almost part-time against people who are professionals doing it full-time. Look, when I first started doing CrossFit, I was like, well, I'm not going to watch the CrossFit games. I'll feel bad about how inadequate I am. And I was like, I'll just watch the women's CrossFit games. And within 2 minutes, I realized all of them could whoop me. They were way...
You felt really bad about yourself at that point.
But the nice thing about CrossFit is you could kind of measure yourself against the professionals. When you're watching a basketball game, it's hard to understand just how good they are because of how fast they all are and how athletic they all are. Where if I actually went on that court, it would look ridiculous as to how slow I was, right? When it comes to real estate, a lot of times people don't realize what it's like being in competition with the professionals. They have organizations. This is their profession. They're studying it, and they're getting into it in a part-time type of way. And that's where people make mistakes or get sloppy. So I would say you really got to treat it like a business. You've got to truly understand it the best you can, learn how to manage and mitigate risk, focus on cash flow, look at how you can make money on the buy by getting a good deal up front and knowing what things would need to be tweaked in order to make that even more profitable. Or if you're finding someone that's in a distressed situation that just wants out and you're helping them out, and so that you're actually getting a better deal because it's not the right thing for them. There could be kind of a win-win type of situation there. That's really important. For those people this doesn't sound like how Kyle is, but other people might be like, I don't want to I just want to hand my money over. Well, you should probably just pay off loans. Because when you just hand your money over and like, I'll just put it in a real estate fund, or I'll just give it to so-and-so, that doesn't usually work as well as people thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's more important to be active up front with your investing, to understand what's happening and what kind of cash flow and what works and what doesn't work, rather than going, how many people just hand money over to advisors in today's day and age? Here, just take care of it for me. But what are they even doing? And then they just hand it over to other advisors that are taking care of it. They've never walked the deals. They've never analyzed the advisor. They're the money managers. And so we're just in this world where we get further and further away from the transaction, and the further away from the transaction we are, the more risk there is.
Yes.
So we put our money in to one person who hands it to another person who hands it to another person, and then we're like, that person changes and is like, oh, it's not even the same person, even though the fund is named the same thing.
Yeah,
Not
it's
that I'm
essential
upset.
to take personal responsibility over that aspect of our lives. Now, I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are on the journey of building their financial literacy. They're really hungry for educating themselves and growing in this area of their life. And one thing that Kyle mentioned was that he's emerging from a Dave Ramsey mindset, and he feels like timid and ignorant of what to do next. So on this journey, we're all unlearning things and relearning them. So do you have any advice for people who were maybe in one thought process that are entering into a new space, and how to maybe overcome bad habits around money, and so they can grow and be more successful? Or
Dave promotes ignorance and scarcity. Ignorance and just listen to him. He's smart. He's been doing this forever. Nobody else knows. And so it gets people to kind of turn their brain off and go, I pay things off. and then I just blindly invest them, fees or no fees. That's kind of how I feel about it. But then the second thing is scarcity, because it's all about scrimping, saving, sacrificing, budgeting, eliminating, cutting out. And so it gets people to think in a reductionist mindset, and wealth, nobody shrinks their way to wealth. It's a game of production, of value creation, of serving others, of solving problems, of investing in ourselves. And I think Kyle's ready to do that. And we just have to recognize that remnant of scarcity, because there's nothing that destroys wealth more than scarcity. So sure, there's some people, like I read a Dave Ramsey book years ago because people were jokingly giving it to me, but it was like these parents saying, our daughter follows your stuff and now she won't spend any money. Yeah, because if you take it to its natural conclusion, it's all about never enjoying it. And look, I know personally from our friend John that has been to Dave's house. He loves his nice cigars and his expensive scotch, or it might be bourbon or whatever it is, and lives in a big home. It's like, yeah, he enjoys the finer things. And I get that there are people that maybe are overspending. And so they need to really consider a budget and cutting back. And that can be helpful, but I don't love the mindset of you're wrong, you're an idiot, or you're stupid, or just listen to me, I know everything. It's like, we got to start making some decisions for ourselves. And in order to do that, to be more abundant, I think it's a daily ritual. It's gratitude. It's spending time with people that positively challenge you and support you and want to see you succeed. It's continuing to have ways that we develop our skill sets, and the most important ones with emotional intelligence and communication skills, and the most valuable things we can bring to solve problems and serve others. And we break free of that mold of scarcity, but we got to be careful not to be like, now that I'm abundant, everything always works. It doesn't mean that we just throw our money in real estate and it magically throws money back to us. We still have to be really intelligent about it.
Yeah. One of the things when I was in a similar place of Kyle, of doing the Dave Ramsey envelope system, spending a couple of hours a week when I was a teacher, kind of putting money in the different categories. And that does work for some people, but if I would have taken that energy, I kind of had a negative energy around it, right? Like I was just like, I'm not making enough money. I can't do this thing with my friends. I can't buy this new thing because I got to put it in this envelope. And then, and I was always kind of swapping money out of different envelopes to make it work in other areas. But the energy that I had around that was heavy, and I didn't have a lot of joy or excitement around that. And I just think back, if I would have taken 2 hours a week or a month, whatever it was, and I would have thought in a more expansive way about how I could have created more, or I could have just shifted my energy, because a lot of conversation around like, how do I expand and become a more abundant person, is pay attention to how you feel. What is your energy around a certain activity or habit? And if it's weighing you down, just reconsider, like, what could I do to make myself be a more expansive, open-hearted, open-minded, abundant thinking person? And that strategy just didn't work for me. And when I started changing some of those habits, I started noticing my energy elevate.
Right.
And my mind was more open to how I could contribute in greater ways.
Well, I think you answered Kyle's question well. All right, now to turn your thoughts into profits. Buck this system of being in scarcity, become more abundant, serve others, and you know what? Build a life you love. Want to continue the path to be a better investor? Make sure that you're not losing money and taking too much risk? Well, click here and learn about strengths vesting.